It's that time again. It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast. And today we have something really special for you. Today I have my dear friend Vendy with me. Vendy, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm in Austin, Texas right now until the end of the year. I'm freaking loving it here. So thank
Woohoo!
you for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on. This is awesome. So, for those of you who don't know, Vendy is the chief of charm and my favorite person in the whole wide world when it comes to all things
Yay.
personal. So, I thought it'd be fun to have her on an episode of the podcast and to put together a video for you because I want to talk about two words and what they mean and how they impact us in our personal and professional lives. Those two words are trust and empathy. And I
Mm.
think that those two words they play on each other quite well, but sometimes we forget the background definition, if you will, or what it means to really trust. So I'm going to start right out of the gate, Mendy, with question number one of our three question series being, how do you define trust? What element of trust makes it the most important element to build interpersonal relationships?
Hello, you're asking me these questions knowing well now that this girl definitely has some trust issues, or like the trusting is not the easiest thing to do in the world. So,
Planned, maybe?
to,
Anyway.
yeah, maybe. How does it feel in the body when you trust? I think it just, you're willing to open up,
Mhm.
knowing that if you're going to share certain things or let people in. I guess I'm going more down the relationship route or friendship route, not so much business, but even business too. It's like when you're like going to let people in, you let them in on your soul and all of that, knowing that, hey, they might leave, they might hurt you, they might let you down, like you're opening yourself up to basically pain. So I feel like we all want love and we want to trust and we want to share ourselves with the world, and at the same time we hold back because we're like, oh, I really don't want to get hurt, so I'm like just not going to let anyone in, and I'm not going to trust and stay by
That balance is just so delicate. And I think that's the key to
myself.
this. And just tying it back for anyone who's listening to this from the professional perspective, elements of trust the interpersonal elements of trust, I should say, do exist inside of the workplace as well, where you have to trust your peers, you have to trust your teams, you have to trust that leadership is giving you a clear assignment, that they have a clear vision and strategy for what they're trying to do. But sometimes trust, just if you struggle with the interpersonal trust piece of it, it makes it that much more difficult for you to struggle in an organization, right? It just makes it that much harder for you to establish that trust. It doesn't make it harder to struggle, it makes it harder for you to trust. So, with that
Yeah.
being said, I hear a lot of leaders who tell me, I'm a servant leader and I
Yeah.
believe in empathy and I've walked the mile in your shoes. But one of the quotes that I often give when people say that is, it's one thing to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, as long as you remember to take your own shoes off first, so you're not walking with bias, so you're not walking with
Mm.
a preconceived bias about that topic. So
Mm.
tying trust to empathy, let's switch gears for a minute and I'll ask you the second question, which has to do with empathy. How can we be professional but still display vulnerability through using empathetic situational thinking, I guess the best way to put it. So if there's a problem or issue or something we're trying to tackle and we're trying to be empathetic, we're trying to be understanding, but at the same time it's a professional setting or even a personal setting, how do we roll empathy into trust? How do we get rid of those biases? What do you think?
So I want to just stay on the trust topic for one more
Go
second
for it.
because
Yeah, sure.
as you're talking, I'm realizing, well, what I actually say all the time and have been saying is like, typically I'm like, trust me, just trust me. Like you would ask a question, like we're on Riverside right now. I'm like, Lee, you need to be using this platform. And I was like, just like an hour before we're going to do this, like, just trust me, like do it,
And I did
which is
trust
very
you, didn't
funny.
I?
Yeah. So I'm like basically having an introspection moment right now. It's like, so I'm putting it out there a lot. Like, just trust me. Like, I've only worked in one company after I graduated from university before I started my business, but I used to say it all the time, just like anyone checking in with me, like, because I worked directly with the CEO at the time, and I was like, just trust me. Like, he's like, how are things going with that client? Or I'm like, just trust me, just like let me be. And
Mm-hmm.
he did, and it feels amazing. It's very important because I wouldn't have ever wanted to be micromanaged. So
Right.
again, you're giving me like an introspection moment of like how important that was for me to like know that others trust me to do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to figure out how to be able to extend that also to other people. So thank you for that one. And I can, you see, everything's, everything everything makes us think and grow. And especially this guy, Lee, all his questions all the time. Um, Empathy, I think this is I actually use empathy as a go-to when, if I feel let down. Um, because more likely than not, if someone is letting you down or is angry with you, or for example, like we had for the first time, like I had a client I had to let go on like the after first session, because it was just not quite the manner in the group coaching setting was just not very respectful towards other people, towards like us as coaches and all of that. And I had to, let that person go, saying like, I don't think we're going to be the best fit. And of course they already weren't particularly respectful in the coaching session. So much more so of the scene, though it, for me, like the go-to then is like, this person is truly hurting, for them to be putting this towards people that he's never met before, or barely knows. So like that is my go-to, because I'm like, of course, like do the whatever the decision has to be made in business to, if you need to end that relationship, if you need to have the hard conversation, and simultaneously you can do that hard thing and move into like, if anyone, for the most part, if like people are acting, you would say irrationally, or hurting you, or like letting you down, or running out of your business, like without a reason, like they're hurting somewhere. So you can extend that empathy and being like, wow, like they must be going through something, because there must be something happening. So that's my take there.
Just like everything else in the world, it brings me back to a song. I don't know if you remember the song, but there was a song by REM called "Everybody Hurts Sometimes," right? Everybody hurts, and it's one of those things where sometimes when you're the victim, it's hard for you to see that somebody else could be hurting in a different way. And the irony's just dripping here, because I recently had a coach that we had to part ways with. And what I can tell you is I still have mad respect for this person's ability to do their job. I know that they're still an incredible person, but the paths just didn't go, they didn't align. We weren't going the same direction. Things just didn't work out. And it was really hard for me to try to see things from their perspective. I struggled with that. And what I can tell you is, for me, when I'm coaching leaders, especially, and you mentioned that you've run your own business, since you've pretty much gotten out of university. You've only had one real, I shouldn't say real, but one role-based job. One W-2 in the U.S., what we call it, full-time employment type position.
Yes, sir.
But then you went on and started your own business. And I think that, and it reminds me of a topic we discussed once before. So we were on a podcast together, and you were leading. It was for a YouTube video. And I talked about how sometimes leaders struggle with understanding. They listen with intent to respond instead of listening with intent to understand. So they'll only listen to the point to they formulate a response, and then they stop. And I think that if we're trying to lead with empathy, and we're trying to lead with light and love, that we need to get more used to listening with the intent of understanding instead of listening with the intent of hearing. And just what you said about starting your own business, and the power that it takes, to the strength that it takes to be able to do that, is pretty incredible. So I wanted to reserve this third question, because it's a special question just for you. Usually my third question is always the same for everyone. My third question is usually, if you can take these practices and apply them in the world, what would you do if you could only have one wish? How would you apply these things to help someone become better? That's my typical question. But this time I have a special Vendy question.
Yay.
Are you ready?
Let's go. I'm ready.
All right. So when it comes to, for those of you who don't know, Vendy is here in Austin, Texas, and excited about that. But her original home is Latvia, where she has cultural love, spiritual love, family there, and the whole 9 yards. With that being said, you've grown physically, you've grown spiritually, you've grown mentally, you've grown emotionally. All of these things have happened, and you're still on a quest to find the perfect, and I shouldn't call it perfect, but the more ideal, closer to perfect line of where you're trying to go. So my question for you, the different question that's specific for Vendy, having faced all these different challenges and knowing about all the challenges and struggles that are happening in the world today, just all over the place, if you could offer someone who is either in a leadership position and struggling to understand where they fit or where they align, or someone who wants to strive to be in a leadership position, but they're struggling, trying to get their head around what the next step is, what one piece of advice would you give to that person to help them be more centered or focused towards achieving their goal? What would you tell them to get them to stop that pendulum? Because I know in your life, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but I know in your life you've had that pendulum swing like
Yeah.
crazy. So what piece of advice
Yeah.
would you give someone? And you mentioned introspection, right? So what
Mm.
piece of advice would you give someone to help them down this path? What would be the next step for a leader or for someone who strives to be a leader? What do they need to do to have success, in a sense, not financial success per se, but just success in knowing that what they're doing is making a difference, especially with all the noise around them?
Yeah, I love the question because I was literally shooting a podcast episode yesterday. And I mean, the whole premise of it was like, what's the purpose of life? Why are we here? How do we know we're on the right path? What is God? Who are we? What in the world are we doing here? And I think whatever language we choose to use to describe the divine or the spirit or the universe, whatever
Mm-hmm.
aligns with people, I feel like where, and I can speak for myself, where whenever I make the wrong decision in business or in relationships, it's typically from the ego.
Yeah.
The ego telling like, oh, you should do this in business because X, Y, and Z is going to look good, or whatever the reason, or this person did it, so I should do it. Like, it's all the ego making up your goal, and this is what I should go after. And it's like your will, and I'm going to build this, and I'm going to create this by myself. And it's like basically you by yourself. And learning, and this is a process, and it might take someone years. Definitely, it's been my unfolding. It's like, how do you drop into that? And we can use the language of inner knowing, spirit, being connected with God, whatever, like actually knowing this is the path to take. Because these days, like I'm trying to be very conscious of making decisions, like I would say, based on my gut. Like if this feels right, someone can propose, shall we do this? Or do you want to do that? Do you want to write a book together with you? Whatever. It's like, what is the gut saying? Not if the mind thinks, oh, that would be a great thing to do. Like, let's write a book because X, Y, and Z, and it's going to give me more credibility and whatever. That doesn't matter. It's like, what did the gut say? Because even if I don't fully understand it, like that's us tapping into greater knowing that's out there, and we're trying to connect to and also lead from that place. Because I think when you're trying to create from your mind, from your ego, you're fighting the freaking whole world. You're like fighting the field, the resistance field.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to, I think, all find a way to do is co-create with God, or co-create with the universe, co-create with however, again, whatever language we want to use, because then it's in flow. Like I haven't released this video. Before our call, I was out just like walking, shooting a video, like 20 minutes talking about this, which is like, how do we create more from that place? Because it's, of course, we all want to be in flow, and it's like, it's just people are coming into my life that I need to meet, opportunities are coming my way, the idea I need is in my way. Basically, puzzle pieces are moving without me doing much. I'm just like facilitating the change that God, spirit, use your own language, is needs to bring into the world through me. So that would be, it's not an easy exploration, but I think that's how you know you're more on the right path, and it would align more than the ego trap of like, I want to do this, and why is that not happening?
No, I think it was the perfect explanation, to be honest. You know, I'm a spiritual person as well, and I often say that you need something to keep you grounded or centered. And for me, it's God. And like you said, it doesn't matter which of these avenues you're coming from. It just matters that you have something to help keep you grounded and something to keep you centered in that right direction. And if you let the world around you inspire what you're trying to do, and you listen to that voice, that small voice, it's going to help you be where you need to be. Vendy, you're a rock star. I want to keep it under 15 minutes. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, make sure you reach out to us, learn more at AgileDad.com. We would love to hear from you. Thank you again, Vendy. As always, stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye, darlings. Bye.